Welcome, listeners or viewers, to Assiduous Dust, episode number 11 and a half. I have with us here Megha Sood. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes,
I'm not such a good individual in pronunciation, but I hope I'm a good podcast or video podcast host person. I'm super honored and glad to have you here. We're doing something new with having video as well as podcast. So whatever medium you are listening to for episode number 11 and a half, because we just wanted it to continue. It's just an honor to have you here. I've heard so many great things about you. And listeners or viewers, for those of you who aren't familiar with Megha's work, here's a little bit about her before we dig in. Just a little bit. Megha Sood lives in Jersey City, New Jersey, in USA. She's an assistant poetry editor for the UK-based arts and literary journal, MookyChick, and a literary partner for the Life in Quarantine project by Stanford University. Oh, I can't wait to ask about that for California, America. She's a contributing member at the Free Verse Revolution, Heretics, Lovers and Madmen, Sudden Denouement, Whisper and Roar, GoDogGoCafe, and over 450 plus works in journals. She's done so much, including Better Than Starbucks, just terrific, Gothamist, Poetry Society of New York, WNYC Studios, Kissing Dynamite, American Writers Review, Setu Magazine, awesome, 5 to 1, KOAN, Quail, Dime Show Review, just many more, so much more. Her works have been featured and are upcoming in over 48 other print anthologies in America, the United Kingdom, Australia, and other Canadian presses. She is a 3-time state-level winner for NAMI, Dara, Axelrod, New Jersey Poetry Contest 2018, 2019, 2020. National Winter Spring Robinson Lit Prize for 2020. Just awesome. She received an honorable mention for the Pangolin Poetry Prize in 2019. Finalist in the Adelaide Literary Award in 2019. Just terrific. Shortlisted for the Erbacce. Am I pronouncing this right? The Erbacce.
It's Erbacce. It means
Erbacce.
Yeah.
The Erbacce prize in 2020. Just terrific. And nominated for the iWomanGlobalAwards this year. Finalist in the TWIBB Beyond Black Sakhi. I hope I'm saying that right. Am I?
Yeah, you are.
I am. Okay, Sakhi Awards 2020. Yeah, you have just so much. You've done so much, and your work's been selected numerous times by Jersey City Writers Group and the Department of Cultural Affairs for the Arts House Festival. And you've been chosen twice. Congratulations, as a panelist for the Jersey City Theater Center online series, Voices Around the World. And you're co-editing, a bunch of anthologies. One in particular, the Medusa Project with MookyChick, and the Kali Project with Capital Tree Press. And you have your blog at Megha's World site, which is a WordPress site, and I'll put the info about that .wordpress.com. And you tweet as well. That's something I need to get with Megha Sood 16. Anywho, it's just terrific. There's just so much. If I hadn't botched the entire English language, then and you haven't turned off your thing, like, oh, who's this guy with this groovy hat talking? I want to hear about this individual with this beautiful, yellow mustard, thing. I guess it's a shirt, whatnot.
Top or blouse, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not good with words. That's why I'm a poet. I used to say, so I actually, and I know it doesn't say this here, but I know that you have a background also in computer science or computer engineering. It's interesting as for me, I guess that's something people wouldn't know much about. For me, I studied actually mathematics. So my background is in mathematics and then in philosophy. So dabbling a bit in neuroscience for consciousness studies. And so it's funny, it's really interesting because I know you've been you've been doing, poetry for a while, but it's been becoming more prominent and a lot more as of recently, not too long, and kind of like, you've accomplished so much. And I feel like as a way to be of service to other individuals, how have you, maybe we'll make this a message for service. How have you, like, a few different ways or a few different key instances that kind of helped, bring your trajectory toward the arts, and also towards activism and editing and different and literary works, and brought you into that world, for those who want to follow in such paths or are afraid to do so, because it is, in a way, it is taboo.
Yeah. So, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Joshua, for giving me this platform and space. I'm highly honored to be sharing this platform because I've heard, like, after you've mentioned the Assiduous podcast, I actually heard to few of them, and it was like absolutely brilliant. And I'm like someone like me who's just started poetry in the last 3 years, and to give and share the same platforms with someone who's been like stalwarts in the poetry for like years and years, I was like, oh my God, this is like an absolute honor for me. So so just to give you an idea of how I was involved in like computers and all, I had done my postgrad in Master of Computer Application and undergrad in Bachelor of Computer Sciences. And then I had worked for 12 years in the information technology in business intelligence and data warehousing domain.
Okay.
And we have I have implemented on the capacity of a project manager, and my team has implemented like projects all over 23 countries in Europe, in Asia, and Australia. And I worked for good 12 years when I was in India, and I used to visit like different countries.
And you were in a deep depression cycle because you realized you had to be heard of your words.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe that's for the novel to be followed. Okay. Continue.
So that's what happened, and that was like before I got married. And when I got married, I shifted my base from India to US. And then for few years, I was there was a personal setback, and then I was involved in some I gave up my job, and then I was involved in some community based activities in school and in the community and all that, the volunteering, etc. And in the last,
and education based.
Education based in the sense I am an IB representative for the school, for one school. So it was like a parent coordinate. So I used to work in tandem with my school to help with parent representatives, and in the local community, teaching dance to the kids and all that kind of thing. And then finally, then in last 3 years, actually, it just came to me that I just wanted to start right. I don't know what, if you ask me, this I've been telling in every single interview. If somebody asks, because I had not a formal education in poetry, I am not from
neither did I as well. Like I said, for that. In fact, for me, it's really in just the last year or so that kind of got involved in this, and it's I just think it's fascinating, and there's something going on here, because a lot of people just think you need.
You were born as a poet.
No. There's a lot of people that think, oh no, you need an MFA or certain things, and there are a lot of places that, and I think it's important to have that to kind of debunk that myth.
Yes, exactly. So the thing is that initially I started writing as a notes, and I used to upload it on Facebooks, and I used to get decent response, not overwhelming or something. And then the more and more I started getting response, then I came to know about WordPress, and one of my author friends, they suggested that if you want to be in the like-minded people in the literary community, you have to
immerse yourself.
You have to immerse yourself, and you have to get a platform where you can have critics. And critics are very intrinsic part of any creative process.
Absolutely.
If you don't have critics, then
Yeah,
There's the
you can't
trends
just
on
have
Facebook.
yes people. You can't
Yes,
just have yes
you will
people, and
not
that's
improve. And especially if you want to improve and learn in this craft because
hmm
you have no knowledge. So you have to be around people who can criticize your work and give constructive feedback.
yeah,
So
and it's just like with science and different
yeah,
things, because if you look at it, and that's in a, hopefully maybe we'll get in touch to some religiosity or some spirituality of certain things, and maybe because I feel like it's all related.
it is.
And we'll tie it in. I go weird with that, and I do weird hand motions, I guess, now
No, it's
that this
absolutely
is
fine.
video, or just imagine me doing weird hand motions, and you're an EDM rave or whatnot. If you're listening, but in that, that when I can be in this state of mind, like, oh, I don't know the next thing that's going to happen, and there's this kind of joy and childlike sense of wonder, and that's the same thing, I guess. When I'm like, oh, I can't wait for the next thing that I learned that I didn't know before, that I can be wrong. And that's the same thing with science and stuff. So the best thing, I don't know, I love learning about, I remember when CERN was doing the whole thing with the particle colliders, and that was like really big. They're still doing all that. And I know, like, looking at the history from that, and then also of different particle colliders and things back in the 80s when they were discovering so many particles or different things, or, if you look at something and if something is proven wrong or doesn't fit, that's really exciting because
Yeah,
it means
because
there
there's
can
more
be
to
so much
explore.
growth.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's more
And
to
it's the
explore. There's
same
something.
thing.
It's the same
It's the
thing.
same thing.
It's the same thing. So actually, that's how it started. That's how I started my poetry website. And then for 3 months, I've been just writing. I've been communicating with people in the WordPress. There used to
hmm
be prompts, there used to be shares, and my site actually grew exponentially. I
hmm
never realized. I thought it'll be just a medium for my creative outlet, and
Yeah,
that's
just
about
like
it.
your online diary.
Yeah, something like that. And then within 3 months, I got an invitation from one of the feminist journal, which is based in Pennsylvania. It's called Whisper and the Roar and the GoDogGoCafe. They're part of a literary group, and then
Yes.
they published my few poems. So that was the first of my publication. And not they only published it, but they also invited me to be part of the literary collective. And
So
though
so how did that feel? Let's just paint the picture. Were you wearing the same shirt
no,
or no? Okay,
no.
we'll just paint the picture of a certain thing, reflecting back. Just
So
let
I
yeah.
still remember the month and the day when it happened. I remember it was in the month of December 2017,
Okay.
and I have
I believe
created
you.
I and I started in like August, and 23rd of August was the day I created my website,
hmm
and it was just so surreal for me. I was like, oh my God, not they have only accepted my poems, and the Christian Ray, who's the founder of the group,
hmm
she actually said that would you be one of the member of the literary collective, as in
Which
like
is
a
an honor to be.
which is
It's an incredible honor
and
and a
I
great
never
feeling.
thought
And
that
it's this feeling that, like, oh
you've
wow,
been
this
validated.
isn't. Yeah, yeah. Like, I'm not, like, because there's this whole thing of this imposter fraud syndrome.
Yeah,
This whole
yeah,
thing that's really prominent, and a lot. And it's good to have that
yes.
recognition, to be like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because what happens that throughout my academics, I was a good
hmm
student. Like I used to be the top three in the university. I was the third topper in my university.
hmm
Throughout my job, I was one of the youngest managers to be promoted and work for. So I had this feeling of, validation and
Validation
acceptance
and also perseverance.
and perseverance,
Perseverance.
right? So when I was doing this, and I was like, yeah, okay, it's my creative outlet, but that somebody needs to tell me that I am doing something right. And then when that
Exactly.
got it, and I never realized it will happen so soon. And when it
Like
happened,
that.
yeah, and I was so honored. And to this day, I keep mentioning Christine Ray everywhere, and she's like, Megha, you are far beyond that. But I am like, no, you gave
Yeah,
me the
because you
first
bring
chance.
these individuals with you
Yeah,
along the way. We all uplift each other, and I think that's important because we're not like just. I'm not just me. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know if people actually exist. I don't know. I think that we are a network of individuals. We're in creation, tied into everything, and we give things lines and delineations and cut things up. But in a way, we're really everybody. We stand on the shoulders of everything, and we lift each other up. And when we're
that's
in
the
that
essence.
sync, in that
That's the
symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. that's the essence of being in a society, that you lift other people and you're lifted by other people, and that's how you grow.
Exactly.
You cannot exist in isolation, you cannot exist in vacuum. And
Yeah.
that's
In fact, yeah, vacuum, going back, isn't even a thing. It's not, there isn't like a
yeah.
complete pure vacuum. It's not, yeah. There's things popping in and out all the time.
So that's how it happened, and from there she invited me, and then we discussed, like, because I was like, okay, I'm just getting a platform to put my thoughts to paper, but then I realized the power of words and their reach, and I said that I
Mhm.
can start educating myself and generating the awareness for the social issues and causes, which I'm very
Mhm.
I'm very proud of. So then I started the first online anthology, and I discussed with Christine, and she said that I've written like a small like anthology of 7 poems based on social
Okay.
evils. So they had different social evils of rape, infanticide, and domestic violence, child
Mhm.
trafficking, and so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
then she said that we are going to do a call out to people or the readers of the Whisper and the Roar Collective,
Mhm.
and that's how. And when I saw the response to that online anthology, and I
And
was
that
like
just hits you
overwhelmed.
like, whoa.
Yeah,
And
and
it's this feeling that really has no expression and articulation.
yeah.
I, yeah, you
So
know,
so
you know,
from there it started, and uh, sooner and sooner more literary collectives like started reaching me out, and then I started like becoming part of the like a contributing editor member of them. So right now I'm like part of 5 to 6 literary collective, and from there like the journey started from there. And my main
mhm.
idea was to like generate the awareness for the social causes I was like
Exactly. Use it
passionate
as
about.
activism and a
Yeah.
method, a platform to kind of speak about these things because it's important. There's somebody I'm sure you've heard of Luis J. Rodriguez, of who's was a LA poet laureate who
Okay.
and he has in this, in fact, I went to school out in Claremont, California for at Pitzer College, and they have this consortium. They have that hosts also the Kingsley and Kate Tufts
Okay.
poetry, the
Yeah.
thing that of the CGU and of the that whole department, and they have in an interview of him, and he's talking about somebody's like, they say that your poetry is political or certain things, and he
Yeah.
in one of the issues, and it happens to be the one that I got. I didn't know that it existed there when I was studying math and all that stuff, but it's like, it's inseparable. You can't talk
Yeah.
about these
Yeah.
issues and
You
stuff. It's
cannot, you
going to be
can.
involved. It
Yeah.
is poetry. It is there,
it- yeah. And
and it's, you have to do it.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I say when the people ask me that why you are writing about the issues which you are so like passionate about. I'm like, to me, poetry is it's a very strong craft, and I wanted to use this tool to reach out to millions, and whatever the reach I can make. To me, poetry is not only personal. To me, poetry is political. And I'm like, if you read a word, you might know about all these inequality in your life. You grow in a society, right? But when you read something which
And you
actually
look at the
stirs.
history associated with certain
Yes.
terms, even.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And when the words moves you and stirs you, you realize the power of words. I mean, you may read in a newspaper about certain event, might not pay attention to it. You
Yeah.
read a strong poem about it, which will like give you goosebumps, and you're like, oh my God, this happened, and I want to be part of it. And that's what happened in you know how 2020 has been a roller coaster of like so many events, and it's
Yeah.
been bubbling like everything, right? From the first week of the 2020 when we have like the Iranian conflict with the US, and then the pandemic, and you name it, and then the systemic oppression of African American, the Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
everything. So,
Hmm.
to be very honest, I am a people of color, but I'm not an African. I'm not an African American or like a black
Hmm.
person, right? So, I had to educate myself to see through that how far this systemic operation has been going for 400 years, right from the day
Yeah.
one the Mayflower has reached the shores, and then
Right.
the gun violence, the police brutality. And so when you read it, it's the same thing with every other issue around me, that I may
Yeah.
not
And
be an
poetry
active.
becomes a teacher, and it also helps you. Let's go back. Maybe you have this thing of when you're looking at a system for a computer system or a certain thing, you have you know where I'm going to go with this. That it's you have a system of a certain thing, and then you look at its limits. In knowing the system, there's a limit created, but then you can look at the limits to a certain system, and it gives you a limit that you can know, and particularly when you're talking about for complexity theory.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, this gives me some helpful information by what I can do. And knowing your limits, knowing your lack of knowledge on a certain thing helps to inform you. And then there are boundaries upon that. But in fact, our limitations and our ignorance or our naivete or certain things should be motivators for us to learn more and to grow more and to be aware and respectful and to be humble and to be open-minded.
Yes, exactly. So I keep telling this to everybody that having a difference of opinion should not be taken as an offense. It should be respected and it should be included. Like the more perspective you have in a society, you should not feel offended by somebody else who is having a different opinion.
Right.
You should include it and then learn from it that there exists another side of the story which you should be aware of.
Right.
So
yeah. There are other human beings that are going about. I love, I love going to the park to edit and do work. And sometimes I'll find myself just meditating. I get there and I can't edit first. I'm meditating. And, you kind of look out at certain things and you wonder when you can see that there are individuals out there with values, ideas, beliefs, all types of things, and they're not necessarily the same as yours. And when you do that and you can see that, your greater appreciation, it affects your whole mindset. It rearranges who you think you are. And in fact, it allows me to do whatever it is that I need to do.
Yes. So that's going back to the thing that how that my involvement in the literary collective, and then I started writing for various different anthologies and presses, especially for those presses who are raising the profits, who are donating their profits to this different charities which they are passionate about. So the first ever anthology which I worked with the Indie Blue Press was called "We Will Not Be Silenced," and that was the lived experience of the sexual and domestic violence. And it was a very successful anthology because in year 2019 it was the top 100 anthologies to be read and by the Huffington Post, and we were at number 2. So from there I realized, and then it's almost like 50 plus anthologies which I have contributed to, and most of them are basically, some of them generating charities for RAIN, which is the National Network of Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, then National Sexual Resource, and then different Joyful Heart Foundation, which is by Mariska. So my main idea is to, because it's a literary activism I'm doing, I cannot go out and be a part of a charity or do something for them, because I'm also a mom, I'm also a wife, I have certain set of responsibilities. So then I'm like, okay, this is the tool and the gift I have been given. How can I mold and morph this gift of mine and do my bit
in the way that while maintaining also balance, because balance is important.
It's
to
very
make sure, especially, as an individual in the literary things, you could easily go into the whole Edgar Allan Poe, or whatever, or certain things, or, like the whole woe is me, this whole idea, or pick up like the tendencies that probably made Charles Bukowski great, but probably wasn't as great as an individual, as a person. I don't know. Hey, just pretend I didn't say that. If not, difference of opinions.
People should respect that. I mean, you are entitled to your difference of opinion, and we should respect that difference of opinion, and do not,
as long as it doesn't infringe on other people's their effect for their freedom and for their life. But there are things that, and I was talking to someone about this, that, you go out of advertisements or certain things. There are things, in fact, that are ingrained in us, that are being inflicted on us. And I didn't ask for an advertisement sign to be put out there. I don't know I'm talking about this. But there are certain things that are influencing us to such a degree or such a level. And in fact, I was talking to a friend about, the other day about, I guess, a few months back or whatever, about reality TV and how our rap music, or certain notions of certain things that, in fact, that you can listen to something passively. And in fact, passively listening to something in certain situations is in fact far more dangerous than actively listening to it and realizing what it is that you're letting in and molding those beliefs, values, or certain things that we kind of accept or we don't investigate. What's going on here? What's it saying about our country? What's it saying about the world? What's it saying about how we conduct ourselves? And can we kind of break through that? Through the pen is mightier than the sword. It's not just a cliche. It's a felt experience that you realize and associate to. Yes, I remember when I lived that experience.
Yes, exactly. So as I was like continuing the journey, and after that, then, I was offered like poetry editorship with one of the US-based journal first, which was called Real Chat by Mark Anthony Rossi, and then it went for like a year or so, and then in the meantime, I was writing and publishing and getting published in different journals and kept growing, and I consider myself as a sponge because I don't have a
As a what?
As a sponge, which like
a sponge, yeah,
sponge, right? So which like absorbs everything. So I want to read and read everything because I'm not from academia. So I feel that I have to like
we're still learning and
we're still learning, and learning never stops in life. And I have to read and read. So I read everything from modern to contemporary poets, reads the interview podcasts. So I've also done like book reviews for certain people. And that's how I joined the like poetry editorship so that I can learn from other and all. So I've been all learning, as they say, on the job. So as I go, I've been learning from the other people in the literary collective, and that's how right now I'm editing 2 different anthologies with 2 different presses, and in the process,
and that's how you're able to do so much, is because in a way it's also informing how you go about life in perspective.
Yes.
Because if you separated it, and this is, I don't know, but looking for me, like, if you're like, in a way, it's not like a job. It's fun joy.
Yes.
And it informs aspects of, sometimes you learn a certain thing about yourself. Like for me, I was working on for my book for Becoming Vulnerable, and I'm really engaged, and I realized that, okay, autistic addicts in recovery, that's something that's really important, or there are certain different things that it's like, this isn't being represented on a level in the poetry and literary scene as much as I think it ought to be. And there are different things that are important. How can we use our experiences, our life experiences, or the word in order to inform on the page or to examine certain religious or certain beliefs? And can we do that? And I think that's so great that you're utilizing that. And if you, for example, sorry, I'm not sure where I'm going with this. Well, I'm seeing if it ties back. This is all just one.
No, it does in a way, because you are also trying to say that how you can relate different and how it led to your.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Because we have not been charted a very well-defined path because we have not done a formal education. So we learn as we go. So,
but in a way, that's really cool. Actually,
that's really cool.
Because in fact, that's the approach it actually I feel, because in a lot of different ways, not that there are things of this like there's this individual, Brian Sonia Wallace, who will be on the show, who was on the show for last episode. He says poetry, and it kind of poking fun in that whole thing, that there can be this upscale kind of like hierarchy of thing. But I think that the individual who has their first published piece can also learn. Not only learn from like somebody who's like, whoa, but also it's reciprocal. It's of service. It's both, learning and
it's a collaborative thing. Yeah, we learn from each other. I mean, there have been so many times when I've been influenced by people which I read, and sometimes they reach out to me and said, "Oh, we've been so influenced by your work, and we are so happy, and we did a found poem on your work, and you did a center on my work." So it was such an honor. It was such an honor, and somebody of your stature.
Well, it inspired. It was an inspirational, and I feel like sometimes you don't have a choice. You're like, something else is writing something.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the thing. You want to motivate that. You want to
And
motivate that drive.
yeah, and you can see that a lot in the literary community and in the poetic community. And then like there's a darker side of it also, that people are like in a very tight knit circle, that they okay, you
Yeah.
have a certain path, you've done your BFA, MFA, then you go for fellowship, then retreats, and then you come out with your, and there's a
And
certain
now you can publish stuff.
and
You
now
can't really do that until then. You can't. No. Yeah.
yeah, so many people reach out to me after I had published, and I've won like state level and national level awards, and I've been editing. And to me, I'm like, it's this is my path. I'm carving my own path, because there's so many times. It was very funny that before the pandemic closed, I was invited to a poetry festival as the headlining poet. It was for the Franklin Township next town, and they invited me to headline one of the days. As they had like one day for the French poet, one day for the Hispanic poet, one day for English, and one day for Hindi poet. I don't write in Hindi, my native language, but I do write in English. So say that you can read both of the poems from Hindi literature, and then you can read your own English poems. And then say, Megha, it's such a good platform that you'll be headlining that day, so you can bring all the books that you have published. I'm like, oh, okay. So I said, no, I
Like,
haven't published. So I said, no, I haven't published any book. So like, seriously? So you've been published so many times, and like, yeah, but I mean, that was not my intention ever. I was here like, okay, I am passionate about this cause of mine, which I have been actively participated or passive to it while growing up in my country, and I wanted to generate awareness for it and educate myself in the same process. I've never
exactly.
thought that, okay, I'll publish a few times, get out a book and promote it and do
Boom, boom,
everything.
boom. No, because it's
No.
not for you. And that's what's great. And things take off when it's like, I could care less if it's about me, if it's about something else, something greater. And that's the thing. And I find that's, one of the things that I think poetry is kind of like a means of, and that's another aspect of how poetry is political, inherent in its nature.
Yeah.
Political in the sense of how politics used to be.
Yes. So here this is like a very apt point where I would point out a quote by the current Chancellor of Academy of American Poets, Kevin Young. He says that poetry should not only tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to know.
Right. What you're afraid to see.
Yes.
To see what you're afraid to see.
Yes.
And to grow from that,
Yes.
and
So that kind of struck me, that yes, it should not only tell me what I want to hear, that okay, I want to write about this topic, but it should tell me what I should know about this. And from it was a very strong resonating thing with me, and I said, yes, I am on the right path and I'm doing this, and the book will come in its own time, because for right now I've written like close to 1200 1300 poems. But I have never sat down, and now I did like compile my
the pandemic also makes
but I've been writing like this for the last 3 years. And during the pandemic, what really went up is because everything came on virtual. So there were so many areas where I couldn't go personally because of my child's engagement.
And that's one thing, because it opens doors to like other people connecting more so.
Yes.
And that's one of the great things about technology. It can be a blessing and a curse. So I wondered if you would, share, just jumping back a bit about, if you have something you've written about what you're personally, I guess, afraid, to see, or to see some stuff to introspect that you're kind of maybe working on now, or at a later time that you were grappling with internally. Something, if you have a piece that kind of, has that looking inward of unraveling and, demonstrating that quote.
Yes. So yeah, to me, I think from what I can think of on top of my head right now is like, I've been always been intrigued by silence. And silence and its aesthetics. So I think silence is like very unique in its own way, because it's not only, everybody has a different perspective, everybody has a different interpretation. To someone it's like inclusiveness or like loneliness, and for some other person it will be solitude. So for me, I think silence is like an art, and it's a language which needs an own interpretation. So I have taken silence as a tool of introspection, and I've written so many poems about the silence that I've clubbed together, and for my my poetry collection, and I've called it Silence, a Lost Art. So I want to read one of the poem which I have.
Okay, would you do so silently using your eyes or ears or whatnot of people? Maybe not.
I think
Would you silently speak? It's hard to do this without quoting from, Simon and Garfunkel. Would you speak the sounds of silence?
for this I might use words, but
Okay.
that's the underlying emotion of the poem that you don't have to speak up to convey. But right now I'm saying it with use of words. So is it okay that I read it?
Oh, absolutely. It would be
Okay.
not okay if you didn't.
So this was like published in the first in the flight The Nightingale and Sparrow, and it was one of the magazines, and they published my poem, and it's called Silence, a Lost Art. So it says, silence is neatly tucked between the layered wings of the soaring eagle. The shifting angle of his wings holds the distance between the spoken and the untold. Silence has its own semantics, the lexicon of the unspoken. I can carry the debilitating pain in my marred soul for eons before you see the tears trickling from my eyes. Silence, a deep soliloquy with time. You press ears to the throbbing heart, else would miss the pain. Silence is neatly tucked in the palm of a stillborn, dissolved in its muted stench. Silence is the only conversation for the reticent mind, as the moon brushes across my face, dripping the verses, picked neatly by the time. Silence is a lost art, so sublime.
Ooh, snap, snap, snap.
Thank you so much.
Silent clap. Silent round of applause. Yeah, there's something, and it is sublime, and it is a lost art. And let's see if we can tie that back. Let's see if we could. Let's see if I can do that. Um, there's a line of with the newborn line. Silence is, if you could read that one again. Silence is,
Oh,
yeah.
it's neat.
But before the dissolve, those two
It's neat.
lines that are there.
Silence is neatly tucked in the palm of a stillborn,
Yeah, and then it's dissolved.
dissolved in its muted stench.
It's muted stench. Oh, yeah. So then you got smell, you got different things, you have, and there's this surrealism. And I think in a way that, because, silence is surreal. And
Yes,
also, but I don't think until we appreciate silence, we don't, or maybe I'm speaking for me, I think you start to realize or kind of fathom silence when because for me, like meditation, I got to this point for the last couple years or so, or a few years, 3 years or so, when I meditate for about 45 minutes, and some of it's reading some spiritual literature or whatnot. But there's this time that I need of my own contemplation and quiet time, Josh's personal time,
yes,
and with silence, that silence isn't really realized until for me, I'm speaking from my experience, realizing and pointing to the difference between hearing and listening.
yes,
And something in the, that's in the English language is that, I guess that I don't know too much about too many other different languages, but there are places where, it makes sense to use the word listen, some form of the word listen or some form of the word hear, where in fact, maybe one or the other. It's not. It would be better to use the word listen instead of hear.
yes,
And it, in a way, also, poetry is something that I don't think is just meant to be read, but it's also meant to be heard. But really, what it's meant to be is listened.
yes,
It's meant to be listened, and also in a way, we kind of listen to ourselves. And in listening to ourselves and our growth and our connections to everybody else, how, we kind of build up on top of each other
yes,
in a way that we see the kind of the stench or the certain things that we'd like to change, or certain things that are in us that's maybe innocent, like the newborn stench of a poopy or something. I'm sorry, I don't mean to go funny. No, but there's a certain aspect to it. But in fact, that we're approaching something that it might seem weird or uncomfortable when we're at a certain situation, but we're being vulnerable to it. And then it's kind of, it's dissolving and it's fleeting and whatnot. And we kind of realize it. It's like silence also, we talked about, there's not everything, what was it? That, vacuum, nothing is in a vacuum really. If you look at it for silence, there's no pure, true silence. In fact, the purest silence would be the loudest sound,
From there, you were telling about the meditation. So I did heartful meditation for like a year or so. And in meditation also, they say that you cannot do that you can shut your mind and no thoughts will come. Thoughts will come. If you think that my meditation,
it's
you're
a different relationship to it.
It's a different relationship. So even when you're sitting and you're like not thinking about anything, it's not like all your thoughts will be erased, but you will be able to handle your thoughts in a more positive way. You'll be able to handle them, and you can still have your moment of peace within yourself. It's not like there are zero thoughts. You cannot have zero thoughts even in the meditation. So that's what they teach us in the heartful meditation, that you focus on the heart, but it doesn't mean that you'll not be able to have any thoughts in your brain. The thoughts are there, but it's like you don't let them like not disrupt your peaceful state of mind. So that I'm in real life, I'm a very vocal person. I am a very talkative person. So for me to sit down and then to think about and have a deep inspection,
to have this back and forth where it's like, of in between of thought, and, pause. And that's the thing, because it allows for greater ideas and you can appreciate it and realize it, actualize it.
And I think that's how, I don't know, I just relate one thing from one to another. And I think that the pandemic thing, it's a kind of moment of pause in our lives. So it's a necessary pause, which tells you to appreciate so many things in your life. So many things.
Individuals, even like, our essential workers or individuals. Like, how often have you even heard that term like before 2020? No,
I know.
Maybe, but it's not really something that's even used. Like, and so we're giving more appreciation and that pause. There's a pause towards it. There's humility.
Yeah.
And I know that you've been working with, that you've grown towards more of an appreciation with your project and affiliation with Stanford University, as well as I forget the name of a certain laboratory or something, with your Life in Quarantine project, and kind of to realize, and that's a similar thing, that you could go about life in quarantine of a certain way with a certain attitude and be like not appreciating, and no, I need to change it from within, or you could accept it and allow yourself to kind of grow and change through that acceptance, kind of like in the same way that a system has limitations in terms of its complexity, but that allows for growth for what you can do more. And so what kind of led you, if you could just explain more about the Life in Quarantine project, and maybe keeping in line these metaphors and tying in with silence, how we'll see if it fits, how you that's kind of come about, that collaborative project, what it is, and how you've grown as well through looking over these submissions and through working on this project. If you would care to, wherever you see that, from any angle of that giant, monster of a question.
Okay, so before I talk about the Life in Quarantine project by Stanford, I want to just give you a brief background. So how it led to this project.
Right.
So initially, that during the pandemic, there was a lot of community-led activities which was going on with the different literary communities. So as I told you that, so there was like Poetry Society of New York, which was doing a pandemic sonnets, which was a lot of like crowd-funded, and individual events also. In crowd-funded, they used to like invite so many people to be part of the collaborative project. So in Poetry Society of New York, they called something called pandemic sonnets, which they invited people to write sonnets, and then that was published in Poetry Society of New York. Similar way, the WNY studio, they every year, they during the National Poetry Month, they give out prompts to the readers, and in response to that, the people, they give the poems, and the poems are then been selected, and then they're being read on like Brian Lera in the morning show. But this
Sure.
year, because of the pandemic, they actually did a crowd sourced kind of thing where they gave out prompts, and then we sent out the poems, and the poems were selected, and a big collaborative thing. So like on, and then I also was part of the Jersey City community collage.
Right.
It was a montage thing which was done by the Jersey City poet laureate Rashid Wright, and he invited poets from the Jersey City, and they did like a collaborative poem which was then recorded also in a video
Okay.
collage. And Jersey City,
And where can they find that?
that on the Jersey City poetry website, or on
Okay.
the, and if you look for it, the Jersey City collaborative poem by Rashid Wright, it'll take you. It's by the Arts House production. So initially, after the poem was being formed and everything, they also did the video montage of it, and it the Jersey City mayor and the other councilmen were also part of it.
Hmm.
So, like these many activities, they were like, I was part of the 13 different community activities during the pandemic time. So then Stanford has this call out for the essay uh, for the people who have been affected by the pandemic. So
Right.
then initially my essay and the poetry got accepted, and then one of the days I was discussing with the project managers about the publication date. So then he asked me about what I was doing in the poetry community, and then
Regarding, and in specifically regarding the pandemic, or
specifically regarding, no, in general, that where
yeah.
in general he wanted to know that how much am I connected in the literary community.
And
And
you can pull individuals together, and
yes,
that's
yes,
the, and be a leader.
yes, and that's how. So basically, I'm in a literary partnership with the Stanford University, where I act as a conduit or a medium between Stanford and the artist in the community, and I reach out to them and then ask them to, like, submit to this project, and it could be like it's called Word in Quarantine. So just to start with what the project is, so the Life in Quarantine basically is a project which is sponsored by CESTA Stanford and the Poetic Lab Stanford. CESTA stands for Center for Spatial and Textual Analysis.
That's what I was thinking of, that I couldn't remember.
Yeah, and they are basically creating a historical archive of the personal narrative of all the people throughout all the world in response to the pandemic. So they are not only like curating the personal narratives, but also curating, like, they're also reaching out to the artists in the community. They are reaching out to the mutual aids. They are reaching out to the prisons. They are reaching out to, different sections of the society.
Or
It's a huge,
hospital of
yeah,
certain
yeah,
things, or
yeah. So
different essential workers, even
yes,
Uh,
yeah. So they have different sections in the,
different slices of life.
yeah, and so they have different sections of the website, and the literary section is the where I come into picture, where I, for the Words in Quarantine section, I reach out to the artist and then ask them to submit, and I curate the works for them. So basically, the need for it, how it arises, that when it was Spanish flu, it was like 100 years before, there was no such personal narrative being curated,
Yeah.
and there
Plus,
was
you
nothing.
also didn't have the internet. You didn't have
Yes,
this
you
for
didn't have
certain
these
things.
tools and all, and there was no personal narrative being curated. There was nothing for the historians to work upon, right? And
Yeah, and how we can grow as a society,
yeah,
as well as maybe individuals or different individuals. So you can look on these many different levels, which
yes,
is so great as a result of individuals coming together.
yes. So that's what they are doing. So it's a historical archive of, it's a brilliant proportion. It's a very timely project, and I'm so proud and honored to be part of it. And it's been started by 3 doctoral candidates of Stanford and a few undergrad students and 1 professor. And we are in the first phase of the project. And so, as I told you, and it's not only in English.
It's
It's
in many different languages.
many
I mean,
different
and there's
languages.
probably a whole translation thing, because there are certain things that you could dive into so many aspects. It's like there could be so many different doctoral candidates or different things, even looking at people that will later on refer back, maybe in future years, to refer back to this from so many different perspectives to investigate this as a thesis. And that, when you think about that, it's like, wow, you know, you get to be part of history and you get to be part of being of service through that in different ways and make it about learning.
Yes,
and then the other thing is that then how you learned or grown from your process of this, you know, how have you grown as Megha?
Yes. So just for the record, I want to mention the name of the website so the people who's watching this video or listening to the podcast.
Oh, of course. Yes. That's probably pretty important.
Yeah. It's called liqproject.org. So once you go there, you see the different sections. So there's one called Blogs in Quarantine, then Words in Quarantine, then Arts in Quarantine. So they have curated artists' works. They have curated like literary works in like visual arts or in performance arts. Then even if you're not a writer, you can submit your personal story that how the pandemic affected you, and then you can submit to them. And they don't edit. They don't edit because they don't want to.
That's really important. That's really good because they want it raw. They want it real.
Yeah, and the other very good aspect that they have done to the project is maintaining the anonymity. They will only use your initials and they don't hold any rights to your work. The rights like revert back to because the Stanford doesn't hold any rights.
Is so that the anonymity part, is that just for the personal stories?
No, it's for everything which is on the website. So once you go to the submission form, it's in the end of it, you see a clause where it says that Stanford doesn't hold any rights to your work, and then all the rights revert back to you. And they use your initials. They don't use your full name because then maintain the anonymities. For that, there are some countries like China, and they don't have the freedom of speech as much as we do here in this country. They can still tell how the government is doing or how they're affected by the pandemic.
Right.
And they can submit their narrative.
And it's modified and everything's watched over and and for the internet. And it's sad. And so that's a really great aspect that's being done is really phenomenal.
Yeah, and the other aspect of it is one of the professors who are involved, the senior professor of Stanford who's involved, who's also a chairperson. He is also going to look through the archive later, and he's going to select few things which going to be part of the standard curriculum. So the stories which actually make like more impact, they will be like selected as a part of the like a textbook. So this project is like gonna spread out like in years, and it has no deadline, as pandemic has no deadline as of now.
Exactly.
So I just want to like state this out, that people, you don't have to be a writer or anything. You just have to be a person who's going through the pandemic, which all of us are.
If your experience is most important.
Yeah. And you can like submit your personal narrative. It can be small as like 3-4 paragraphs, or it can be a bigger, anything, the way you've been affected. And the other feature they have used is they have partnered with a few doctors, and it's called the Nola Podcast. And these are the doctors who give a perspective from the health, from the medical point of view. And it's like a few minutes podcast that they upload every day. And if there are any story which they think,
and that can be found at
that's on the website. So they're one of the partners. Yeah, liqproject.org.
Sorry, there's something in my eye. Oi. Yeah.
So that's
the burden of having an eye. That there's something in it sometimes. Yes.
So that's the project, and I every day I'm so honored to be part of it, and they're a brilliant team to work with. So this is the first phase of the project. The next phase, we are going to expand it to more phases, as in like we'll reach out to the LGBTQ community, how they are impacted,
or different sectionalities.
Now the strata
maybe there'll be something about maybe even looking at for the autistic society, or
exactly.
kind of looking at that. And that's something even I know a few people that or others, and hopefully people who listen to this might be influenced for that, because that's another slice of different things, or even for recovery, or let's say there are different people for 12-step rooms. This might be a bit of a joke of a certain thing.
No, it's not.
But if you imagine, so I'm in LA, and so if you are, LA has a lot of different 12-step for different things. And if you have, let's say, a lot of people that are, they use Zoom or different things or technology to do, if there weren't those technological things, if you had a bunch of people with a lot of the different issues, left to their devices, LA might be no longer there. It might be in ruins and shambles. If there wasn't, that's a joke. That's a joke. But yeah, it's LA. But and that's really important for doing different things, and it's looking and it's international, and that's the thing.
It's not
that
only
we can come together, and what you can do to help, and in fact, your vulnerability or what you're going through or what you have to offer, you might think you don't have something to offer, but in fact you do.
So initially when he offered me the partnership, I was like, oh wow, I'm like, how can he selected me, right? I'm like, I don't have such academic qualification which pertains to this project and all, but he saw that I was like, I had a decent reach out in the literary community, and then I can reach out to the people, and that's exactly has happened. And I have given like interviews before yours, and we have mentioned the project.
You have? No, I'm joking. Okay.
So then one of the interviews which I gave, what was like a podcast, it was The Vow of Women, and by Candace Jesh, and it was released in 7 different outlets. So Stanford reached out to them, and they bought the rights or whatever for that section of the interview, and then they promoted that the LIQ project is now on the airwaves and all. So it's all about helping each other. I'm like, the more, I mean,
could
this
you
is the
imagine if you didn't? I'm just to stop you there. Do you think? Could you imagine what would have happened for different things if you never put your work out there in the beginning on social media or whatnot? 3-4 years, let's say 4 years back, all of a sudden you stopped. All the change, everything you've done, one thing.
Yeah, one thing.
If you just like stopped, I'm too busy to do it. Do that. And then how that would have shifted, your life and different things, and not only yours, but all the ways that you've helped individuals and come together. That would be sad. I just want to say that. I think that's really important just to look at that. And that gives us pause, and it gives us also silence to then appreciate our words.
Yes. So that's the thing, and that's the thing I learned from other like the literary initiatives which was in the community, that these people are doing nothing but they are actually connecting people in this moments of isolation. I mean, people are there in their own islands, and the art is bringing us together. So, this is so essential, especially in these times where you're like, you divide of people's touch. You cannot go out and you cannot see people's faces. You cannot see the expressions and all, and you are like in this moment. But there are these initiatives which are taken by the literary community in any medium of art, and they are bringing people together. And that's how I landed in the Jersey City Theatre Center, the online series which I mentioned. So that was the series. So Olga Levina is the artistic director of JCTC, and she invited me to speak on a panel. And the panel was an international panel, so they have like for every week it ran for like 6 weeks, and they were like 4 to 5 sessions, and I was being invited to 2 of them. So what basically was the idea behind it, that theater industry has suffered one of the most because of the pandemic, because it's something which is very active, right? Poetry, we still can go on because we don't need so much of a setup. We just need a computer and a Zoom, and we can interact. Theater is something which you need a proper setup. So they still wanted to bring the theater artists together, but she wanted to include some of the poetry in there as well. So she invited me to speak on one of the panels, and the panel was like, it was filled with people who were so accomplished. They won like the artistic theaters and like theater people who's like the literary festival, they're theater directors and like very esteemed people. And from
you're like, oh, you almost feel nervous. You're like, oh, wait, what? And there's that imposter syndrome. Like, do you have something about like a piece about that incident, or did you write anything about, maybe not exactly that one, but about kind of like gratitude or looking inward of like, whoa, what of introspecting upon, during the pandemic in terms of what you've been, I guess, thrown or gotten to be part of. If you have a piece about that you would speak silently with
So during the pandemic, basically, what I was initially more writing about the way it was affecting my life and the way it was affecting the life of others. So it was mostly affecting my writing. And then how the events were unfolding, then there was this Black Lives Matter movement. So I wrote a lot about it and all. But then there came a moment when the poem which I'm going to read it's basically in response to a real life experience that one of my friends, he lost his mother, and not because of pandemic, because of a long illness, and she was in India, and he couldn't go and see her in her last moment because of the border closure and everything. And I had to call him, and I had to make that condolence call, and it was so difficult for me,
and there's nothing you can really say. There's nothing that you could do.
And that's exactly, I'm going to read the poem. Knowing that, I'm like, what are you going to say about it, right? So then I was dreading to make the phone call. And when I did the phone call, it went for 30-40 minutes. And the moment I ended the phone call, I was so filled with grief, which I didn't say in the phone call, but I wrote it. It came out as a poem. And this was the poem which got selected by the WNYC studio because they had a prompt called Lessons Learned. So I'm going to read this poem out by your permission.
Yes. Would you share us your lesson learned?
Yes. So this is called A Condolence Call. Grief sits like a day-old soup in my kitchen unless the anger stirs it, rattles, and boils it. Grief rises to the surface and chokes me. I hear the loss of a mother, my friend's mother, over the phone. It's a condolence call, yet I can't seem to join in his grief. Sudden loss disjoints your body. The pieces don't seem to fit anymore. Body and language are extricable. Our tongue moves in the way our body can't decipher in grief. I can't seem to form a legible sentence. Our conversation keeps coming back to the grocery. The loneliness of being stuck in a condo, looking over the lush green deserted parks. I don't want to bring back the conversation of the dead and dying. The whole thread of conversation is about feeding the ones we love. Loss is pouring through the thin sluices of the city every damn day, which starts again the same way it ended yesterday. Or was it tomorrow? With sidewalks pitted with the bones of the dead. I can't seem to fathom the desperation and anger in his voice of not being able to visit his mother during her last times. The pain and the grief carry over like a failing enjambment from one meaningless conversation to another till we ran out of the small talk. The silences between the pause take the shape of the unsaid condolence as I slowly hang up the phone. There is no defined language for grief. Lesson learned.
Oh, that is so lovely. I also thank you, and I believe that was that the piece that I happened to do a word cento of. No, but there was something that it was some. I don't know why. I must have read that elsewhere. I think I read it that piece
maybe
somewhere.
this was also published in the Stanford, so maybe when you went through the archive you must have seen it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think maybe I have.
Published
because it's not supposed to say you, so
yeah.
Okay. The secret's out. Peekaboo.
So actually the personal narrative is the point where the anonymity is maintained, but the art section, they don't want to maintain the anonymity because the artist needs that appreciation of the work.
Okay, that's important to notice and to specify.
For artists, they want, right, when they submit the poems, the essays, and that's the words in quarantine section. The personal narrative is a different section where you can mention that, okay, I don't want my first name and last name, I just want the initial.
What about in for the is there an option regardless what section
Yeah,
that you could specify? If,
I think
let's
yes.
say, if you're in, a country or a certain area where it's a lot of bad things and surveillance and being monitored in a way that will affect your rights.
Yeah, that's
Would
how I brought China into the picture. So there was a lot of people in China, like Chinese dissidents and all, and they want to give their own personal narrative, but they don't want to mention their name in full. So they had an option. So to,
and
strike
that
out
was
the
then it was that expanded though to the poetry and other areas as
uh,
if on a case to case basis.
no, it's general. I mean,
Okay.
you have to tell that it's I don't want my name. I think in the personal narrative, if I remember it correctly, personal narratives are always with the initials. They're never
Okay.
with the first name. But in the case of artists, if you want to name
So
stay
that
remain
is an
anonymous, you
option.
still can. Yeah, it's an
Okay,
option.
so that's good to
Choose.
know. That's
Yeah.
important, I think.
So even if you're artists, because they're also like anonymity in every creative way, right? So if you don't want to be like credited for your work and you want to stay anonymous for reasons best known to you, you still can vote for that option, choose that option.
And I think the most anonymous, the paragon of anonymity is silence.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
pure silence is the paragon of anonymity.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a
Yeah,
good
that's a
poetry
good one.
line.
I'm gonna write a poem on that.
Okay. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful, Joshua.
Okay. Would you credit me for that, or should
Oh,
take for that?
absolutely.
Would
Oh,
you
absolutely.
mention me? Okay. So I wonder, would you? Okay. So let's see how we'll do this. Would you engage with me in learning lessons of pure silence, stitched together collaborations of many different books, oceans of books, and mountains of forests of pages, and let our silent sounds permeate this recording / video thingy?
Yes, I'll be honored.
To do, aka the OTSCP, on the spot collaborative poem.
Yep.
Yes. So
Okay.
for listeners and viewers, the name of the game again is, what we do is that Megha has a few books that are laid out that I asked her to just lay out a random or just some books out, not necessarily poetry. It can be if she wants. We'll see what her reveal is. I have some books laid out as well. I wonder if you can see I don't know. I'm not going to try that. But I have some.
Say out the names of the books if you're comfortable.
Yes.
I can tell you mine and.
Yes. But first, so I have some books out. Megha has some books out, and what we're going to do is we're going to use wherever our eyes kind of go. We're going to stitch together, and do kind of like in this stream of consciousness sort of way, on the spot, sort of like exquisite corpse style / Burroughs cut up variant, blah, grooviness, and wherever our eyes see and gaze at, we're going to take that and look, piece it together, and go back and forth. And you can do it with your friends if you'd like.
Yeah, I can introduce this in my the Jersey City Locals Writers Group, and I can give credit to you.
Absolutely, yes, and absolutely, that would be terrific. And also for listeners or viewers who are interested in it, please engage. It's a really fun thing, and it's a way to also collaborate and a fun way to do poetry with another, and also to read, maybe then later, pick up a few books that you haven't read before, and you just start reading it from a page because you're like, oh, this is cool. Then that's the thing. It promotes learning. It's good. It should be taught in every classroom. I don't know.
Yes, exactly.
So would you go ahead and let us know which books you authors and titles that you've selected?
Yes. So as I told you before, that I read a lot of like modern and contemporary poets because I relate very strongly to them. It's not like I don't feel strongly to the classic poets, but my reason for relating to the contemporary poets is they're living in the same times as I am. So they are exposed to the same things which I am. So when they respond to a certain event and write a poetry, I can strongly relate it to me. So for these reasons, I have chosen the book of Calling a Wolf by Kaveh Akbar. And the second book I've chosen is The Night Sky with Exit Wounds by Ocean Wong. And the third book which I have chosen is basically, I call it my Bible of poetry, because I always go back to this book if I have to learn anything about poetry. It's called The Primer for Poets and Readers of Poetry by Gregory Orr.
Oh, yes, Gregory Orr is great.
So okay. Who's
Okay.
starting?
And
These are the three books I've led out.
Well, let me first read mine. Oh, and if you want, you can give the page numbers for each that you have open.
Yes. So for the Kaveh Akbar book, it's the page 8 and page 9. For Night Sky with Exit Wounds, it's again page 8, page 9. It's random, but it's the same page number for some reason. And for the Gregory Orr book, it's page 76 and 77.
Okie dokie. Awesome. So I have out, I just unhooked my spiggity camera thing so that I could read this. So I have out, let's see, I have Ariel, the restored edition. So that's Plath, Sylvia Plath. And I have it out too. It's great. Yes. Yeah. The last page of Letter in November. So the last page, last stanza part. And then I have the first page of Amnesia. Amnesiac. Yeah. So that's 70 and 71. And then I have let's see. I wonder if there's a way that I could actually show it the flip. Maybe I can do that. Oh my God. It's amazing. And then I have the sound of mysticism. Yes, by Khazrat Inayat Khan, to pages 198 to 199. And then I have, of course, I have Girdle Asher Bach by Douglas Hofstadter. It's, I haven't read the full thing. It's tremendously complex. It's a very challenging read. I have it to 254 and 255. So that should be interesting. And then I have out of the Beat book, edited by Anne Waldman. And I've been also looking more recently at also the some of the female poets during the of the early Beats that weren't considered as much, like Diane de Prima. And here is Joanne Kiger. Who is, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, page 248 and 249. So it's of March, it's from her travels from Japan, particularly, I believe. It's her, from the Japan and Indian journals. So this is a really interesting piece. So I have it of, it's from that I have out on pages 248 and 249 of her personal notes and poems mixed.
Okay. Recently, I'm getting close and close to the National Beat Poetry Foundation, because I associated with James P. Wagner for like a few of like my work got selected for the Walt Whitman Collaborative Poets and for the National Beat Poetry Foundation. So I started reading more about the beat poetry, and I was very happy.
And James was on just for last issue for that. So he's out for episode 11. We're piecing together, looking to potentially to piece together these OTSCPs together, and have that all out. Maybe we'll see with local Jobs Trust. We don't know exactly, but he's taken interest in it. He loves collaboration, and I know you have your chapbook coming out.
Like today.
Well.
Yesterday I got the copies of my. It's like it's more
not yesterday, but yesterday to the past and the future of the blog. A bit ago.
So in the month of like September, I got my batch of my poetry, and it's like a mini chapbook, and I wrote as a response to the 15 days poetry book the poetry challenge, which they give, like for 15 days they give prompts and every day we have to write down like poems in response to those prompts. It could be a fib poem, it can be like a sonnet, epistolary poem, or a grid poem, and so many different kinds of. So basically, it challenge you to attempt different forms of poetry, and to respond to that, that this was a chapbook which came out of it, and they had a printing service, and I got my first like chapbook printed out. So I really appreciate that he accepted, and that's
He's great. He's
it's good.
great.
It's very
And
helpful.
so you'll be with that. And so let's OTSCP it up. Would you like to begin?
Yep. So so you want me to read like few
So
phrases from all
wherever,
the
so
six
it's
pages?
wherever your eyes go. For
Oh,
example, if I see I see here,
okay.
yeah, I see like every word, every C, amnesic words are unmon mode paradoxes. So I just piece those together, and then there's a pause, and so it would be then your turn after the pause.
Okay.
So yeah, awesome.
So you want me to go first?
Yeah, if you'd like. Yes.
Okay. So brilliant dime-sized raptures petaling off him or dreaming across my body.
Imagine land finer, much finer, seas unmon, who most ably Tambala Zen Asher Zen.
Room spiritless as any prince, faithful work of drowning, they will see him struggling to be free, gives itself permission.
Red wife, a minute of worms of another, he throws, thinks life is larger than a thought. In Sufi terms, no one can call perception a masterpiece, questioning delights in the picture into hard war.
The sickle from their chest seems open itself to the wild. Now my blood between his ribs, how easily a boy in a dress, a wave of porcelain faith.
If words are ism, the fate unasks, naturally, logically carried the way, the size of old place of the mind of stock room Buddhas.
For it a catastrophe of joints this, I kept a housefly tied to a string, tied to a lamp, as if their swords, there is no reward. What station is the static on?
Something neither I nor you, who can say the curious KOAN offers begging, offers no journeying. It continues automatic. It continues a breath to the sun. Terms muakkals to accomplish gloomy Buddhas, to accomplish this path. Their English hands swimming Brahmin, Jain, asanas.
Puddle I am soaking, in which came, room spiritless, an agile brute, who held the knife is gone, in the back of his throat, a flash, a white asterisk, storm clouds, sky bursting into sea like skirts of bruises.
It goes on. We ring a whole universe. Never dared another color off their brother. Nurse gray death action water on the ground.
Open itself to the wild. Now my blood is drying on the pillow. This belly full of blades and brutes, as if dancing could stop the heart, threw it wrench into scaffolding skies, storm clouds, across my body, a universe.
Guided beginning, shawl lingers, sleeping Shiva, says monasteries discussing, posing absurd, given in the spirit of holism, in the spirit of space, the fluid incomparably more continuous than any kingdom of thought.
I do my pillar of fuzz, my damn lettuce. Listen to me, faithful silence. Somehow we've become strangers.
A green life is blue death, the beginning birth, beginning universe.
You tear into a body and come out with a fistful of the exact feathers, seamed cast in lapis and spinning light. Inside him, this horse with its human face, beneath the sound of his own, but a concrete night stands bursting with sleep.
Tipped over a new God, tipped over a new death, no pervading, only a little barren one can think about the pebble of man, of wife, of a sigh, as four beautiful, blank, logical master breaks the mind of fields of fervent Buddhas.
The need to comfort anyone else to pull the sickle from the chest, pulling a thorn from the eye of a dog, into hooks as he twirls his horse head shadow thrown on the family. The only thing that breathes is me.
Let's end it there. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll have to title it for something. And of course I will, type it up and, send it to you, and no words deleted or inserted, just line formatting. And thank you so much.
Thank you,
Megha, for joining, me and the whole of this non-physical space that I guess this existence is in, of this recording or whatnot, in many different places. We're literally being copied and pasted and reproduced in this virtual void of that is soundless and yet timeless. Yeah, and hopefully we can do what needs to be done in that void. And I wonder, would you please share again, so you have your social media again, you have if you could list your different things, if you could just remind of where people can purchase also your the Local Gems book.
Okay, so first my
your chapbook and your other stuff.
So for my poetry website, it's a WordPress site. So it's like Megha's World. I keep forgetting. I don't know for what. Megha's World site.wordpress.com. And for my Twitter, it's as Megha Sood 16. And for Instagram, it's Megha's World 16. And that's it. And then I have a writer's profile and in pw.org, which is poetsandwriters.org. You just have to like search my name, and then the writer profile will come up.
Yeah. Seek and ye shall find Megha Sood.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I hope you have a great, grateful, productive day.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I just want to say it again that thank you so much for inviting me to this platform, and it's been an honor and pleasure to like spend so much of time with you, listening to your thoughts. And it's not only about my interview. I was like also like got exposed to the kind of person you are and your thoughts.
Aww.
And it's such a nice, and this is the medium which connects us all. So one of the thing which I'm really thankful to poetry, which has like given me this gift, is that I got to know so many beautiful souls in the society and in the literary community. And beyond this, like I'm really thankful that they'll be part of my life or whatsoever for the rest of my time on this earth, and I am really thankful for that.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see what happens. Before we're copied and pasted and deleted. It might be a different copy of us, elsewhere. The way it's, because before this gets to where others are viewing or listening, we might be totally different people.
Yeah, this basically brings to me I don't know, I'm just say it out very fast, but this brings to me a thought. Like I read one of the Elon Musk's quote where he says that we are not existing in real, we are just simulation. It's a big simulation that we are, and we are different points of simulation which we are running in parallel. And I wrote a poem on that, and I was so intrigued by the video which he gave and the quote which he said about that, how we are not existing in reality, it's just a big simulation of people. And so I mean, you keep coming back to that there are multiple versions of us, and I so believe in the parallel world and the existence of the parallel world and the different versions. And I read a book, Richard Bach, and about the parallel, and it was one of my favorites. So yeah, before this I just wanted to say it out so loud that I really like the way we like interact and the way our thoughts are, and it's expanding to new thoughts. It's not limiting.
Absolutely. Well, here's to expanding thoughts and not limiting. Water is good.
Yes, I have water.
Water.
Here's to this.
Water. L'chaim. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I hope your listeners and viewers check out your work, check out your awesome poetry that you're doing, and get involved. Get involved. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.